to me, delegation is allowing other people to be in my circle that I can trust to be able to take some of the things off of my plate so that they can be handling part of what needs to get done so I can be able to handle other things. So it relieves me of all the tasks that I would have to do if I was not delegating.
You're asking yourself, why am I doing this?
Smart people would know how to use all these different tools. They
start with something small and
never get your entire organization if you don't pull off operations. Don't give up.
It can be as small as that.
I think you guys are going to have our last today.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Delegate That podcast, where we discuss the art and science of delegation, business, management, and leadership. Today, I am thrilled to be able to have a strong, wonderful conversation with Terri Peters. Terri, if you can, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience and tell us about your business, and then let's get right into what your definition of delegation is.
Oh, great. Thank you, Adam. My name is Terri Peters, and I have a tax practice. It's called Tax Time Ledgers. And basically, I'm a tax strategist and a business advisor. I'm not anything to do with the puppy mill for tax returns. I don't just do volume returns. I want to be working with my clients. I want to advise my clients in all different aspects. So this is a great opportunity to not only talk about what I discuss with my clients, but also what I'm dealing with in my own business itself. An interesting fact, I am trained directly with Mark Kohler, and a lot of people who do tax strategies are aware of Mark Kohler on YouTube and Matt Sorensen, and so I'm extremely integrated with them. Mark is basically my business coach. I'm certified with his Certified Tax Advisor Network, and I've co-taught with Mark at the Crypto Tax Summit, and I've been on several panels at the conferences that Mark has. I'm extremely involved with him every week. We're on YouTube's together, or Zooms together, and I'm having a great time. I mean, it's totally changed the tax world for me, and I feel like I'm really changing the people that I'm working with, their businesses, and how they go about it, and how they think of taxes, and how we can utilize their businesses in a different way than, being that annoying, uncle that you put in the corner.
Yeah.
They're actually learning how to run their businesses and enjoy it, as opposed to letting the business run them into the ground, basically. So that's just a little brief excerpt of what I do and how I'm integrated with business, and what my background is. I'm a licensed accountant, and I'm an enrolled agent. I deal with the IRS and have all the rights to represent taxpayers in a tax situation with the IRS. Hopefully we don't have to do that very often. I try to do returns well enough that we don't run into audit situations, but you never know. If you get called, I'm the person that you reach out to help. But it's a fascinating field, and it's not something to be scared of. And I hope that I get to be a really strong voice for people to realize that we can utilize that tax code that everybody hates to actually learn how to plant a financial garden with the savings that I'll be helping you with.
Yeah, there's a saying, I forgot who I first heard it from, but it was like, that the tax code is tens of thousands of pages, and there's really only one line that says you have to pay taxes. The rest of it is discussing how to get away from it, and it's understanding those loopholes and understanding how that all works to really use it to your advantage, because it's a playbook in the grand scheme of things. So when obviously we're here to kind of talk about delegation and management. So tell me a little bit about what delegation means to you. What would you call delegation in your world?
I would define delegation, and I'm not looking up anything on in a dictionary or anything like that.
Of course.
But to me, delegation is allowing other people to be in my circle that I can trust to be able to take some of the things off of my plate so that they can be handling part of what needs to get done so I can be able to handle other things. So it relieves me of all the tasks that I would have to do if I was not delegating. There's just not enough time and enough, bandwidth in my brain to handle every single thing. And running a business, I've had to do it all myself for a long time because, first you can't afford to hire someone, at least you don't think you can. But once you start looking at the time that you're saving from delegating, and you're getting a second opinion on certain things, like I would do something a certain way, and by delegating, I'm starting to notice there's other ways to do things. So it's really it makes me more well-rounded. So in definition, you're just asking other people to help take things off your plate that they can do so that you have more time to do something different. And for me, it would be like money making activities.
Yeah, and that's what you should be focused on as a business owner is what makes this business money, right? In the grand scheme of things, that's what we should be doing. So, I love the definition. That's definitely where we need to be. So, as you were kind of like building out your business, when you were starting out in your business, did you already have the idea of what you wanted to delegate, or did you understand how you wanted to manage your business, or was this just something that you kind of jumped full foot in and said, "Hey, let me just give this a whirl and see how the business world goes"?
I don't know if I would just, I don't know if I'd say I was winging it, but as a tax person, I could do everything.
Yeah.
I know how to do the bookkeeping. I know how to do the payroll. I know how to do sales tax. I know how to do the tax returns. So I basically did everything myself, and I was burning myself out. I just felt like I was just wasting time doing that and not having the time to actually connect with the clients the way I wanted to connect with them. I didn't have time to do a lot of the certified trainings that I wanted to be able to take part in. So that forced me to look out and start delegating some of the bookkeeping. And it took me time. It took me a couple of different people, 3 different people to be exact, to go through to realize that I needed to do something different in the type of personnel that I wanted to bring on. And I have found a good fix for that. And now I've got a team that's actually working with me that will do the bookkeeping. They'll also take that information and put it into a tax return. They'll run up a set of notes and work papers for me to review. And I feel like for me, I do a better job because that's being done. Now I do the review work. I'm doing the brainiac stuff where I'm like looking at the numbers and I'm coming up with options and strategies that I want to talk with my clients. So for me, I didn't know what I was missing until I started putting it into place. And now that I'm putting things in place, like now I have somebody, an outsourced answering service. I thought, well, I don't get enough calls. What am I doing that for? But with my phone not ringing, I'm able to accomplish so much more. And then I get emails when somebody does call from the company, and I can determine, do I want to call this person back? Do I not? And it really makes, I think the people that hate the whole thing the most is my family because they want to talk to me and they can't. But I'm like, just text me and I'll call you back. But delegating wasn't something I started to plan to do when I started my business. I wanted to be able to make the money myself and support my family with what I was earning. Yeah. And I just by necessity, I decided I'd better start looking into bringing other people on. The fear is committing to somebody being part of it and feeling like you don't have enough work for them to do. So how do you find the right person I don't want to commit to 40 hours a week. I wanted to commit to like 10 or 20. And so there's all these little decisions you have to make. And some people, if you've got backers or you've got a lot of money to put into your business, to start your business, it might not be as big of a thing. But for me, I started this business on the side as I was working for other people until I could make my business 100% my own and do everything myself until I got to that point.
Do you remember what the first thing you outsourced or the first thing you delegated, especially outsourcing? What was the first thing you kind of outsourced in your company where you were just like, was it the phone calls? Was it emails? What was the first thing you just like, yeah, it's time to get rid of this?
Well, the first thing I outsourced was someone to come in and go through my box of papers that I had when I moved from one place to another so that they could go through and organize all of that because it was like daunting to have. I didn't have time to go in and go clean all that stuff up. So that was the first thing I outsourced is I had someone come in and organize all my paperwork and my files and everything else. Not that I do a lot of paper nowadays. Everything is, online, but there's still some paper. But I had stuff that I was dragging along for years and I needed to get that cleaned up. Once that happened and I realized all I had to do was like grab this pile, go through the pile, and then that person would I'd say, all right, I'll go through this later. No, you need to do it now. And so that was my first outsourcing was having someone organize my office. The next thing was I hired someone to start working on some returns for me. And so I basically had everything all queued up and ready to do the return. And then I handed it off to the person to do the return. I didn't really like that as much. I felt like I could do the return. That was the easy part, getting the numbers in the return. It was prepping to do the return and then, having to do the review. So that didn't really work. So I pulled back from that and I brought somebody else in thinking I'll just have them do the bookkeeping. And then I can take that and get that information into the return and do my review and all that. That didn't really work out well because that person that I brought in, a QuickBooks expert, they know how to reconcile and match invoices and match expenses, but they're not accountants. They don't understand the relationship between a balance sheet and a profit and loss. And they're both very important documents that have to work together. And so that's when I made the decision I needed to go full blown and really hire somebody that could do the bookkeeping and the return part, and then be a second set of eyes. So some returns I'll do for myself, and then I'll send it over to my team and have them go through and review my return. I never had someone to review my stuff because I was by myself. So sometimes we get these complexities with special tax forms, especially like international things, and I'd like to get a second set of eyes on it. And so I can have my team do that. So it's kind of a checks and balances for me and for them. So I have not hired a virtual assistant yet, which is how I even got to know you. Is I was thinking, all right, I need someone to go through my emails and things like that. That's the hard part for me. But that's what I'm working on now. So in the next couple of weeks, I'll probably be hiring somebody to start working with cleaning up my emails and giving me my task list of what I need to make sure that I'm following up on. Because that's the thing is you get so many emails, it almost feels like overwhelming to follow up. It's like I'm trying all different things to follow up, writing things down on paper, wake up in the middle of the night, have paper next to my bed. And I don't like that. So I'm trying to find the right person to help fill that role for me. So that's my next hiring to do, my next
For sure.
delegating.
Yeah, well, in a way, it kind of was, right? Because your first was somebody to organize your paperwork, right? So that gave you the good feeling and seeing it in person how it was. So tell me, that experience of having somebody come in, how when they got it all organized and you didn't have to look at that paperwork anymore and it was all set up, what was kind of that feeling that you had of boy, this was great. I should have done this sooner.
Oh, it was a great feeling. It just took pressure off of me. And I didn't feel overwhelmed when I sat at my desk because I knew everything had a place and I knew where everything went, and it's been easy to keep up. I now have learned to, open my mail and go through it and deal with it immediately. It either goes in my recycle bin or it gets scanned and put on the computer and then goes in the recycle bin, or I pay it right away, or, things like that. Follow up with emails, things like that. I'm trying to do things immediately because if I set something off to circle back, that's where I get stuck. And so that's part of the reason I want to get the virtual assistant. In fact, Mark Kohler, he constantly would give me, the first year I was working with him, he was like, Terri Peters, you need to get a virtual assistant. That is the best spent time and money that you could ever do. And I was just sitting here I don't have the money to spend on that. I've got other things. I got to buy software and I've got to do my trainings and I got to do this and that. I got to travel and not even traveling for fun, traveling for tax conferences, which actually is not so bad when it's the Kohler group, because my colleagues in that team, that group of people, they're like me. We're forward thinking. We're bigger thinkers. We're not, doing taxes the same way they've been for years. Like I say, the puppy mill for tax returns. And so we're actually getting to meet each other and talk about the strategies and some of the complexities with it and what software does what. And it's kind of neat. But yeah, I'm glad that you pointed that out because it does make me feel a little bit better. So yeah, that was my very first thing, was bringing someone in to take care of my, organize everything, clean up my office. And it was a huge relief. And it made a joy when I came in my office. I didn't feel like, I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to ignore all this. I don't have to ignore anything because everything's in its place.
Imagine that same feeling when you have somebody doing that for your email, when you have somebody doing that for the management of that, where you can come back from one of those conferences and you get to sit down at your computer and not go, oh, there's 424 emails that I got while I was on that conference that I need to go back and catch up to. It's that stack of, it's the, the electronic stack of paperwork on your desk when you get back, where now somebody else can manage that and give you that fulfilling thing of oh, there's just one folder that says these are my action items. What is it that you feel like is the fear of letting go of something like that? What is it? Because there's a lot of people I'm sure that are going to be listening to this that go, boy, the email is one of those things I just don't want to give up. I feel like I need to have that. What's kind of your concern with giving that up on the delegation side?
Well, I feel like I save every email. So, there's some I put into junk, but I guess my fear is, I don't know if I would say fear. I don't live in fear, but um, a concern that I have is that I'm not even really sure. It's just like this overwhelming thing that I'm not going to be able to see everything. And so I'm sure whoever I hire is going to do a better job than I will. But to me, it just seems like I have to feel comfortable with having someone go through everything and know what's important and what's not. And then the other part of that is not only to know what's important and what's not, but I don't want to be asked 50,000 questions because I might as well just go through it myself. I'm going to have to be asked 50,000 questions. So I want somebody who's, detailed oriented, and after working with me for a couple months will all of a sudden be able to like determine, this is something I can handle, and then they handle a certain way. And these are things I need to push over to Terri. So like I said, it's not a fear, but it's a concern. So I don't know. How do you handle that?
No, yeah, that's a concern for most people, and it was for me as well at first. It's one of those like nobody can answer an email the same way I do, or nobody really knows how to look at like if I was asking my assistant to filter through emails for a property that I may want to buy, it was like how is she really going to know what I want to do? And I recorded a Loom video of me going through all of my emails and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for in this type of email. This is what I'm looking for in that type of email. This I would delete right away, and this I would keep. And then, for the first couple of weeks, there was a lot of questions, but that should be expected as you're bringing onboarding a new team member anyways, as they're, trying to get used to it. So that was kind of how I did it. I just recorded myself doing almost everything on my computer. Like, this is how I'm managing all of this. This is what I'm doing for all of this. And then my VA was able to come in and watch my videos and kind of help with that. I would imagine that you had to do something with the call center, right? So tell me about the call center. Like, what was the desire to do that, and how did you kind of onboard them into your business?
It was so easy. I just had seen something. I think an email came in, and it was talking about this call answers. I guess I would say who it is, but anyway, this company. I just answered an email. I said, I'd like to schedule time just to talk about it. And so when we talked about it, it's just a matter of call forwarding on my cell phone. And I thought, well, probably don't have very many. I don't know how much it's going to cost or anything like that. But when they were talking about rates and things, I thought, well, that's not so bad. Let me try it for a month and see. So I immediately signed up, and I was reached by one of the managers, and we went through scripts. So I have clients. I wanted to ask, is this a current client, or, would you be a new client? Are you, just calling to set up a schedule of time to talk, or, do you have a concern and you're a current client? So I have two different scripts. And then if it's just a personal call, there's no script. They just need to let me know that, so-and-so called. So they get the name, their phone number, their email, and a brief description of what's going on. And that really helps me, because then, like I said, I can respond back when I need to. I don't have a lot of calls, but it's just my phone is quiet, and it feels good. It's just that peace. Because what happens is I love to share information. It's like my favorite thing in the world is to talk about something that everybody deals with. And I try to take something that's complex and try to turn it into something that's easy to understand. So I can explain things in 5 or 6 different ways. I wish I could say different languages, but because everybody understands things differently. And so I'm very comfortable with talking about taxes. And so I can pretty much hit anything and discuss it in different ways for people to get. So for me, I'd get these calls, and say someone goes to Mark Kohler's website and says, oh, I'm looking for a tax advisor. They go in the network, somehow they're drawn to me, they'll call. And, they're supposed to click the link and go to my website, and then they can send and contact me. And then I get an email, and we do everything that way. But there are people that will see the number, they'll call, and I answer the call. Well, then I'm giving, advice and talking and asking questions. It could take me an hour and a half sometimes if they're super interesting, because it's just like, I'm trying to give them advice, and that's all I get paid for is my time and my knowledge. And as I said, Kohler's been giving me a hard time about this for almost 2 years now. And I was like, okay, I need to do something, because that is my time waster, and I am giving away time. So that way, if somebody needs me, they're going through the answering service, And I have that one little layer of buffer between me and them. Now, if I want to call them back and have a conversation, but now I really just send them an email and invite them to schedule a call with me. And then from that point, I have a little more control over myself and my desire to just like share everything and be able to respect my time and their time.
So the answering service has now kind of just eliminated the concern of you, I don't want to say the word wasting, but spending time on things that aren't making you money, and allows you to stay focused on the things that are making you money, and use the time that you want scheduled for phone calls to be on phone calls, as opposed to whenever somebody else wants a phone call. And that is, I think, an invaluable thing, because it's not only the maybe a half an hour that you spend on the phone with the person because you like talking to them, but it's now the fact that you pause doing whatever you were doing, and now you have to get reset back in to go back into it. So that half-hour phone call may have spent at bare minimum an hour of your time, and maybe didn't even come up with a sale, or maybe didn't even come up with a client. So I think that was a super wise. And you weren't going to mention the company. What was the name of the company though that you use for the answering service?
Answer First.
Answer First. Okay, and they've been pretty solid for you. You've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I just started using them in the last month. So far, excellent.
Very good.
And every client that I've talked to that have called and left a message, every single one of them, I've asked them, what was your experience? And everybody has said the same thing. It was an excellent experience.
Awesome.
And so I'm really glad that I gave this a shot, because during tax season, you're right, getting in and out of work is hard enough when I've got scheduled meetings. It's hard enough when I'm constantly continuing doing continuing education. There's always training. There's always things to hop on. Just the BOI reporting. It's like changing underwear. One day it's this, the next day it's that, the next day it's this, the next day it's that. It's like incredibly frustrating for me. But to me, what I love about having that is I can shut it off or I can turn it on. And so I'm not stuck having to use it if there's days that I'm expecting a call, and I'm like, say the IRS is going to call me back. They're not going to really leave a message, and it's not going to get back to me.
Yeah.
So if it's something I'm waiting for a call back, I can shut it off, and I have freedom to make it work in my schedule. But I do love the quietness of not having the phone ringing. A lot of times it's just calls that you don't even need to take.
It's probably a bajillion spam phone calls too, if your phone's anything like mine.
Oh, it is. And it kind of makes me mad. I'm like, why am I on the radar for these people? I block the call and it's still another line comes through.
Of course, there's tons of them, right? So now when it comes to the email delegation and everything, and being able to do that, so I'm going to ask one question first. Are you a one person shop, or do you have like in person one person shop, or do you have multiple in person team members?
No, I don't have. I'm totally remote.
Awesome.
I have an office that if I want to meet a client, have meetings at, I'll go to. But generally, I just have my own self. I don't want a place where people have to come to. I just don't work well like that. I'm not good in an office because I talk too much. I think it's not the other people I'm worried about. It's me. I gotta like surround myself and keep myself limited.
Completely understand. I work from home, and so my kids are in and out of and I homeschool, so they're in and out of my office all the time. So it's a big distraction. They're trying to come into my office right now, as a matter of fact. So it's it's always a distraction. So if
it is a distraction, but I'll tell you, I work from home, but I have like my office. I'm in Naples, Florida, so my office is 3 blocks from the beach. So if I want to go into my office, I go in there and I can work, and then I can just walk down the beach and watch the sunset at the end of the day or whatever. It's convenient and nice. But do I feel like driving in there every day? No. You save time with your commuting by working from home, but you don't even know how long you're going to have your kids. And so to be able to have, and homeschooling them, I'm just so proud of you for doing that. I wish I did that with mine. But I think it's great that you're able to do both of them. And then by delegating, that gives you a little bit more time to be able to focus on the work and those little crevices of time that the kids aren't bugging you.
For sure. Yeah. And bugging, I wouldn't say, maybe sometimes bugging, but definitely always here. Right. So
you're teaching your kids to be part of the business.
Of course. Yeah. It's wonderful. I delegate to them once in a while.
Well, all right. So I'll give you a free strategy. One of my strategies, if you have an LLC, is, you have to have a board of advisors. So you have to have an annual board meeting. and minutes, right?
Hmm.
A lot of people don't do that. They just set it up online and, they just do their work and they don't do any of that. So it's like, plan a board meeting, go on a vacation, take your family with you, have your kids on your board. The kids can do like, posting online and things like that,
Hmm.
especially if they're home, and they can sit there and maybe enter things into QuickBooks for you, or scan receipts or things like that. And then what I do with my clients that have board meetings, because it's a deduction, the trip for everybody to get to the board meetings, if you're going on a vacation, say you're, taking a trip to, I don't know, some kind of national park somewhere. And so all the flights there and back for all the people on your board, if you wanted to pay for that from the company, you're going to pay for it personally anyway. Might as well have it become a business expense, but you have to have a meeting. You can draw out, you can plan it, use Chat GPT and plan out your board meeting and have your kids be part of it. So by having your kids part of the business, you're training up future entrepreneurs.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so I think it's the greatest thing. And you can pay them, like if they want a couple $100s to go spend on vacation, they can earn it by showing up at the board meeting and paying attention and answering questions. And you can pay them all, X amount of dollars, a couple $100 or under six. Then you don't have to do a 1099. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's ways to use your business to be able to bring your family in. And I think, the entrepreneur mindset is something that people are drawn to. And if you can start your kids young, like my parents, they didn't talk about money. They didn't want us involved in anything like that.
Hmm.
Nowadays, we're trying to bring our kids up to teach them, money management and how to track things and, how to be organized with your finances. And I'll hop on a call on one of those board meetings. I'll hop on a Zoom with my clients and go through all their numbers on their QuickBooks and all their, the P&L and go through the balance sheet and explain it. And I take questions and the kids have great questions.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, I'm really glad to hear that you're doing that. So,
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that I do the homeschool is to bring them in on the business and kind of show them things that I was never able to see and, be able to travel with me and do all this stuff. So, my wife and I have been saying that we need to hire our kids a little bit more often and pay them and bring them into the business. So that's definitely, and to me, honestly, that's a solid way to delegate and have a good tax deduction for, well, not tax deduction, but a good expense for the business and a good ability for the kids to be able to earn some extra money and even invest later on. So I think that's a phenomenal way for folks to be able to look at it. If so, for folks who are since you are like a tax strategy type of person, so for somebody who has a VA or for somebody who's working on all of this, how does that kind of affect the business? If I'm delegating to, let's say, an overseas foreign national VA, and forgive me if you don't, you weren't prepared for this question, but if I have a foreign national VA, like what does that do for our business, for us to be able to expense it and for us to be able to kind of look at that?
well, I mean, I use a company for my tax team. They're in India.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were concerned about, well, you're going to India. What about security and this and that? And, I interviewed several firms and I picked a firm that I really absolutely trust and feel good about. I've been working with them about 6 months now and maybe a little more than 6 months. I've never had a security issue. I've never felt uncomfortable. My radar has never gone up. What I do is I deduct what I pay them. I mean, it's the same thing if you had a VA. If I end up hiring somebody the next couple of weeks as a virtual assistant, they're going to be out of the country. But the company that I'm going to be hiring for, and I think you know who that is, they're in the US. So I would have to issue a 1099 to that company for what I'm paying, unless it's incorporated.
Okay.
Um,
Yep.
but if it's just a person outside of the US, and they're not an employee, they're a literal, they're using their own equipment, they're choosing their own times to work. I mean, they literally file into the independent contractor. Then there's no reporting requirement for you because you're not going to give a 1099 to somebody in another country. If it's an employee that you've got on the books and you're doing payroll for, then they'll have a different tax form to fill out. It's a W-4 BEN or something like that to show that they're in another country.
Mm-hmm.
So you won't be giving them a W-2, but at least you've got that information on there. So it depends if they're independent contractors or quote unquote employees. Now your kids, they're not,
Yeah.
there's a
Different
whole
story with
strategy
them.
for hiring kids under 18. And I have a 21-year-old child. I shouldn't say a child because he's an adult now, but he does some of my admin. Like he'll build, I use Trello to track my returns. And even though I have a CRM system, I feel like I need to have a backup and one that's more visual. And so he feeds that. So when I'm moving work around, I'll ask him to, update that for me, like when people are uploading documents. So my CRM will show everything, but then I have him go in and make sure my Trello is working well. And I think Trello is a great way, even for delegation. I'm going to set up a board in my Trello to put on there what I'm delegating to my virtual assistant, just so I can keep track of where things are, and I'll share that with them, and so that they can give me feedback on certain things, certain projects that they're tracking for me, things like that. So I'm excited for that next step. I'm scared in a way, just because I've never done it, but at the same time, I know it's going to free me up. And that way I can spend more time. Like I want to do podcasts on my paddleboard, up in the Gulf of America. I just call it the Gulf, but I want to do Terry's boardroom, and I want to be on my board early in the morning. And I want to start talking about some ways for business owners, how to track their things and the importance of certain steps that they need to make sure they take every month with their books so that they're on top of things. And I just thought, well, that would be a fun way, especially if there's a dolphin that day. So to me, to have someone to even delegate that, like you're doing this, I guess we're using Zencaster. So to be able to delegate that to somebody to be able to handle, I can just use my GoPro and then send it over to somebody else to do. I don't have to learn all that. So yeah, I mean, the whole thought of delegation to me was something I was avoiding, like, ooh, I don't want to do that. But now I'm embracing it.
And I think you started it off in a comfortable way. Like you started off with just some paperwork in your office, make you feel more comfortable with that. You moved on to phone calls. You've got your son doing some stuff. The son is probably the most comfortable one you've done yet, because like and trust him already. Hopefully know, love, and trust him. But then moving into something else, now you get to just kind of say, okay, well, all of these have been a good feeling thus far. Just imagine how good it's going to feel when you don't have to respond to every single email anymore, and you don't have to filter through all the stuff, and your life gets a little bit easier on the responding of things, and and the back end work of podcasts. There's a lot that goes into editing a podcast and getting it all ready and trying to figure all of that out. So being now comfortable with saying, somebody else can manage all of that. I know that I can push out the best information. I know that I'm not the best at something else. And what I've gathered a little bit in our conversation is every time the things that you've been not wanting to give up were things that made you uncomfortable. Like you were uncomfortable looking at all the paperwork. You're uncomfortable looking at the emails. You don't really like it, but okay. But once you let it go, okay, all right, I feel better now. I don't have that discomfort. So, and I think that's wise for other folks to be able to pick up on that in themselves. Like if I'm uncomfortable doing something, let somebody else do it, right? Let me focus on what I do best. And that's coming up with good tax strategy, right? Like obviously not me, but you, right? You come up with good tax strategy to be able to help clients and be able to have good conversations with them. Focus on that. That's the money-making activity. That's the thing that you're the strongest at. Like jump in and start delegating the other stuff, right?
Well, yeah. And there's another piece to it that is just the most beautiful part of the whole thing. I am able to bless somebody else with work.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I'm all about Main Street business owners, the entrepreneur. My team in India, I mean, the owner of the company he's a licensed CPA in the US, but he is in India. And so he's worked with some big companies remotely, but now he's able to have a facility. And actually he just moved into a whole nother office that has twice the space because he's growing, because I keep giving him business and other people probably do the same. But he has an office that people come to and work, and they're able to run their lives. They're able to pay their bills and go on their vacations and do their savings and do their investment. And, when we can pay forward the blessings that we have, not only to help me, but also to, invest in somebody else, that to me is how the world should be. It's like a circle. And I love knowing that my hard work is able to support help with my son, help with, my team in India, which I'm actually going to go out in October for a month and do some training with them and do some traveling with them and just really connect as a team, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be at the level of success I'm at today. Same thing with my virtual assistant. My virtual assistant will probably come from South America somewhere. So that'll give me an opportunity to travel there and see that culture. So I feel like it makes all this virtual work, I feel like it really makes the world a little smaller and closer and more connected. And so you start seeing people not being different from you, but we're all working on the same thing together. And I feel like that just puts us all in that love frequency that just, makes me feel good every single day. It helps me get out of bed. It helps me be able to be the positive influence with my clients because I feel good and I'm operating up here as opposed to, having to do everything myself, being overwhelmed and kind of irritated that I have to get on this call. I mean, I'm an accountant that likes to talk, but a lot of accountants don't like to talk. And they just want the numbers. They just want to get there and do their thing. That to me, I can get in those modes when I need to, but it's not, that's not making me the money. What's making me the money is being able to take the tax code and the tax strategies and explain it to my clients, look at what they're doing and show them how we can do it differently or add on this, add on that. Let's invest over here. Or I don't give them investment advice, but I can tell them, here's your options. Let me introduce you to this person, this person, this person. You want to get into mineral rights? Let me introduce you to a couple people so you can see who you feel comfortable with. You want to get into oil and gas strategies? We can do that. If you want to start buying real estate, let's start getting money into your Roth and get that real estate investment going. And then you can buy and sell and do whatever the heck you want. And you're not going to pay a dime of tax now when you buy and sell with the capital gains or later when you pull the money out. So people just don't know these things because we're not taught these things. Your kids will probably learn a lot more because they're homeschooled and you can teach them some accounting skills and things like that. So, but the whole process, saving my time to do what I do best and what I enjoy the most, as well as blessing other people with the work that they like to do. I mean, maybe they've got kids and they want to be able to work from home. And so by hiring a virtual assistant or a virtual anything, you're giving them the opportunity to do that. Now, when it comes to accounting and tax, I like having them at an office. I don't want anybody at home where people can see Social Security numbers and bank account numbers and things like that. I have to keep that completely secure. My virtual assistant won't have access to that information.
Yeah, and it's all about figuring out what you can and what you can't delegate, and knowing the difference. And that's sometimes the hardest part is knowing that difference. But Terri, I thank you so very much for jumping on. If people are hearing you and want to get a hold of you and want to learn more about some of the tax strategies that you're talking about, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Well, my website is taxtimeledgers.com, and basically when you hop on there, you'll learn a lot about who I am. Mm-hmm. I'll have a contact me so you can reach out to me and schedule time, or there's buttons on there that you can click on and get directly to my schedule. And I mean, I'm happy to meet with whoever is looking for a partner in their business. If they don't have to give a percentage to regular, like a 5% owner or 10% owner, but somebody to step beside them and help guide and direct and do the introductions. I mean, if you know who Mark Kohler is, then you might as well know who Terri Peters is, because they're completely intertwined. I'm like Mark Kohler and Rodney Dangerfield wrapped up into a woman named Terri Peters. So it's like, okay. But, that's how people can reach me. Or you can go to the Mark Kohler website, and he has a tax advisor network, and you can go in there and search for Terri Peters.
Very good. Well, again, thank you so very much, Terri, for jumping on. Thank you for everybody that's listening. Please like, subscribe, reach out to Terri if she could be of any service for you. And everybody, please listen to the next episode of Delegate That podcast. Really looking forward to releasing this one. Thank you again, Terri, for jumping on, and we will talk to everybody later.
Great. Thank you, Adam.